take a moment to center yourself and ask yourself, what is the money conversation I want to have? Do I just want to go in there and beat somebody up about it? Or do I want to actually have a real conversation? If you don't actually want a conversation, if you really just want to, tell somebody off, go away and recenter and come back later when you're ready to have a conversation, because we all know how that's going to go. Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello, and welcome to the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. So happy to be here today. And happy you're here. This is going to be a solo show, and I want to talk today about money conversations, something we all either have on a regular basis or something people might be not having when they should have them. We put those off a lot as well. Some money conversations are easy, of course, and many are not. And sometimes it's who we're talking to. Maybe we don't have great money conversations with our partner or our mother or somebody close to us, or maybe somebody at our company, or even sometimes our clients if we're business owners and we have to have hard conversations about money with clients. There's so many potentially tricky money conversations that we are either engaging in or we are avoiding. So I really wanted to address this today. It's the start of a new year. I love the idea of people being able to have some of the conversations that maybe they haven't been able to have, or they've had and they've just gone south really fast. And so they haven't really resulted in the outcome that people want. Money conversations are crucial. We have to be able to have them, and we have to be able to, it doesn't really matter if we have them all day long, if they are always sort of, crashing and burning and not ending up feeling good or resulting in a good outcome. So that's really where we want to go with this. We not only want to have money conversations, but we want to have productive money conversations. So that's what I want to talk about. It's a really important subject. And if you've never thought about it, if you just kind of go into money conversations and, just bring your normal self with you and do it the way that you've always done it, maybe that's working for you. But I think at least at a minimum, we want to think about that question. Has it been working the way I would like it to work? And that doesn't mean just getting what you want out of it. That means developing an understanding, having some negotiation that feels good, that is compatible, that, so that, in the future, you can have more of these conversations about different issues and it's going to go well. I listened this weekend to a lot of Tony Robbins. He did a summit and I was listening to him. I haven't listened to him in a long time, but I've liked him since the old cassette days. And he had a method, and this is his, not mine, but it was called the SEW method, SEW. And I thought it was very interesting to use in these money conversations. And it was basically the S in SEW stands for sensation. What's going on in your body? So when you sit down with somebody to have a money conversation, what are you feeling? Are you getting a pit in your stomach? Is your throat closing off? Like, what is the physical sensation that you're having when you engage in this? Maybe it's joy, whatever it is. What's the physical sensation? And then what's the emotion attached to that? If you feel your throat closing off, is that because you're scared, you're angry, you're sad, you're whatever that is? Some emotion is happening in there that is, that the sensation in your body is indicative of an emotion that you're feeling. And then from there, the W is what do you want? So you go from physical sensation to an emotion that you can understand, and then the idea in your head of what you want. There's something that you want out of this conversation, and these feelings are super interesting to tap into and understand what emotions are going through you, because the emotions are going to they're beliefs that you have that are creating these emotions, or vice versa. And however you look at it, the state you're in is going to be affected. The way you go into the conversation is going to be affected. The expectations, are affected. So all of this matters. So you want to kind of, that's a great way actually to go into a money conversation, basically sharing with somebody else these three things. But there are also other things that you can do. You can prep yourself and really think about how you want to go into this, what it is that you want. I think that what do you want out of conversation is always important. So you need to set an intention for that. Why are you having this conversation, first of all? What do you want out of it? And then to sort of prime yourself to be in a good state, or, to feel as good as you can going into this. And there's an old worksheet that I had made up a while ago that I just actually found. And this is something I've used with clients, and it's about recentering before you go into a money conversation. We've all been there when we dive into a conversation and the other person has a different viewpoint, and it's just combative from the get-go. We're just coming at it from two different places. We're ready to battle. It's never going to be productive. And part of that is that we are off center when we go into it. And I think money conversations, because they can be contentious. Let's face it, money is a huge source of fighting, divorce. Money's actually, it's a great thing in a relationship, but it can also be very problematic in a relationship. And part of that is that you have two people bringing their own relationships with money into the conversation. So instead of actually having two people in a conversation, you actually have four. You have you, and then your whole background and history and behavior patterns around money that are coming probably from somewhere else, like your parents or, other parts of your history. So there's two of you and two of the other person, and all four of you are probably coming at this from very different places, very different belief systems and feelings about the subject. So, already it's more complicated than you ever thought it would be. So it's understandable that it can go off the rails because four of you have to agree. And so as I say that, I'm thinking, do you really have to agree? Maybe that's the wrong thing for me to be even saying, because it's okay also if you disagree. It's not all about agreement. That's nice, because maybe you get to a path through an agreement. You can move forward on something. But even if you can't agree, we don't want it to blow up into personal attacks and, just threats and icky stuff that we may have experienced with money. And again, people are very protective of money. They have a lot of, money's a trigger point, as well as a wonderful thing in our lives. So I need to balance that out all the time. But when you think about it, you can before you go into it at all, really think, what is the money conversation I want to have? Maybe you were just reviewing a credit card statement and you saw a huge charge and you just want to go flying into the other room and start questioning, your partner on this charge and go off into, how can we pay for this? This is too high. What were you doing? Why didn't you ask? Whatever the issue is. This is a super simplistic example, but probably a common one. And so instead of doing that, take a moment to center yourself and ask yourself, what is the money conversation I want to have? Do I just want to go in there and beat somebody up about it? Or do I want to actually have a real conversation? If you don't actually want a conversation, if you really just want to, tell somebody off, go away and recenter and come back later when you're ready to have a conversation, because we all know how that's going to go. And if you really want to make some progress, like not see this again, or have the person tell you before they, create a big charge on the credit card, whatever the outcome is that you want, you're going to have to come into this conversation in the right way. So one of the things that we don't really recognize is that the reason sometimes the conversation doesn't work out well is because we're actually afraid of something. So ask yourself, when you're doing this centering before you get into the conversation, what do I want from this conversation? What's the outcome I'm hoping for? And what might I be afraid of? Am I afraid that, I'm going to be losing something? Am I going to be afraid of being judged? Am I going to be afraid of losing somebody's love? I mean, there's a lot of reasons that people are afraid to have money conversations. So whatever it is, just think about it for a minute. There's likely, if you're all, gripped out, and if you go back to the sensation in your body, if something is going on that is making you feel really bad, or you're sad or angry as far as the emotions, there's probably some fear behind it. Not always, but it's likely. So what could that fear be? What could it be that's causing you to want to, basically get into a poor conversation about this? So then, once you kind of know what you might be afraid of, maybe you're afraid of losing control. Maybe you're afraid, of personal attacks against you. Maybe, there's other things that somebody could bring up about money and how you've operated with money. Maybe you don't want to go there. I mean, there's so many things that can come up. It's actually kind of interesting just to think, why am I afraid about having this conversation? Why am I afraid of having the conversation? So what if you had no fear? This is the next question, actually. What if you had no fear about this conversation, or whatever it is that you're afraid of? What if you're not afraid of that? How could you go into this conversation? And that always brings about some other ideas. If there was no fear around whatever it is you're thinking, what would you do? How would you have a conversation about this? Which is really interesting, because when we're afraid of something, we're afraid somebody's going to leave us if we question their spending. What if we're not afraid of that? We just want to talk about spending. How different would that conversation be? So the biggest problem, like I said, we bring a lot of things into this conversation. We're bringing our fears. We're bringing our emotions. That's why I love doing this show, just to talk about emotions and money. Sometimes it helps, but oftentimes it just really kind of pollutes the waters, and things with money don't go well because we're bringing so many ideas or beliefs or patterns or fears into it. So you could say that is potentially a limiting belief, because you're limiting your ability to talk about money with that particular belief. So then, how would you feel if that fear didn't exist? And, what can you bring in from your strengths that would support you in this conversation? Are you naturally a compassionate person, and can you bring that compassion into this conversation? Are you naturally a get stuff done person, and you can bring that kind of attitude and perspective into the conversation? Where we kind of lose our strengths and skills when we get into fear. So identify the fear and think about, if I didn't have that fear, what skills or strengths would I bring into the conversation that would actually make it go really well? This is a little bit of effort. I get it. Before you go into a conversation, sometimes you just want to march in the other room and start this conversation. But I can tell you're going to get a lot more out of it if it's a process that you've thought through. So then you can get into the conversation, and then where's the action? Because honestly, I think a lot of money conversations don't end in action. They end in frustration. They end in people walking away, getting mad, not speaking for a while. That's not what we want. That's a big, giant waste of everybody's energy. A lot of times things are said that you can't take back, that aren't very nice. And so none of that is a good way to end it. When you know you have a good money conversation is when you end the conversation with something that you agree to do differently or the same or whatever is necessary about that issue. So think about that. How can I actually get to a place where we're taking action and we're moving forward? I think it is a really worthwhile thing to think about these things and try to improve all your money conversations, whether you're talking to somebody at the bank and whether you're talking to a debt collector, or whether you're talking to a vendor. There's so many money conversations. If you have to go in and ask for, or you want to go in and ask for a raise, how do you have that conversation? You think it through first. You don't just march in and say, I've been working so hard. I think I deserve X. Think through these steps and go in that way. Especially with partners, business partners, spouses, brothers and sisters who have a money relationship, but that can be tricky too. Sibling relationships and money can be very tricky. There's I can think of a lot of examples when, that can be difficult. And there's more triggers, I think, sometimes with siblings than anybody. So you really want to think that through when you're talking to them. Anything from asking for a discount on something, for asking for more time to pay for something, for asking for investment advice. These are all, this is a zillion. I can't list out all the many ways that we could do better when talking about money and end up in a better place. So I hope you'll think about this. I hope you'll kind of pay attention. It's always awareness is key. Patterns. What are our patterns? Do we even recognize them, or do we just fall into them like conversation after conversation? We all have them. We all do it. And really looking at that and thinking, that's a pattern I have. Can I create a better pattern? Because I'm rarely getting the outcome I want. We're leaving, upset with each other, not wanting to speak to each other again after we do this, or I'm yelling at the person on the phone about whatever money issue it is. None of that feels good. And again, how do we have a great relationship with money? We feel good when we're interacting with it. We feel good when we are earning it, when we're spending it, when we're having conversations with people. It has to be something good in our lives because it's in our lives, whether we like it or not. Money's here to stay. It's part of your life. Might as well have a good relationship with it, and it will help you in so many ways. So that's my little conversation here on money conversations, particularly difficult ones. And again, we had Wendy Wright on the show. Can't remember which episode, not too long ago, a few weeks ago. She's a financial therapist, and she really talked about the conversations you have with yourself and money. And so going back and listening to that show is really a good one. And we have to make sure that the conversations we have with ourselves are also productive, because those can also go south and take you into a place where you lose hope, believe in yourself, you don't believe in, the economy, whatever that is. So take care when talking to others around money and talking to yourself around money. And this is something that we get into a lot when I teach my money date programs. This is an aspect of that we dig into. We identify some of the money conversations maybe you've been avoiding that you need to have and how to go about them. And we make that happen. This is a very important aspect of managing money. If you can't manage a conversation around money, you're going to have trouble managing the other aspects of money. So I do have a money date course starting up February 15th. I thought that was perfect because you can spend Valentine's with your actual love, or yourself or your dog or whoever that love is. And then on the 15th, you can get into relationship with your money. So we'll be starting that again. If you're interested, you will see some links in the show notes. You can reach out to me. And thank you for watching the Money and You show. We love having you here. Would love reviews and to rate the show and to share it with your friends. That helps it keep going strong. So thank you, UBN Go. And we'll see you next week.